Hello everybody and welcome. We are back after roughly a week away, and by a week away I mean last time I did a show was in fact this time last week for SmackDown, but now we are back and I've got to say I've missed you all. Today we are going in depth on Hollywood. That is both ambitions and intentions of some of the WWE's biggest names. I'm looking at Sasha Banks, I'm looking at Alexa Bliss, looking at Roman Reigns, and of course I'm also looking at Becky Lynch, because there's someone who's had a hell of a lot of offers. Echo on YouTube, thank you for that heads up. I have no idea why that might be. What is going on the YouTube side? Nothing should be happening there. Let me just double check and make sure everything's flowing smooth. Is that sorted for you, Ed? Thank you for the heads up on that one. The audio should not be coming through at all as regards that. Right, so lots of stuff happening in the wonderful world of wrestling, but we're going to be talking primarily about the Hollywood ambitions of some of the WWE's biggest names. I've specifically named several there. In the title, I have named some of the most likely leavers, as it were, that being, of course, Sasha Banks, Alexa Bliss and Becky Lynch, but I also want to talk at least briefly about Roman Reigns. I will be answering questions, as per usual. So if you're someone who has questions to ask, please go ahead and do so. We will get to all of them. Pardon me. For those who don't know me, my name is Tom Collehy. I'm a pro wrestling streamer and YouTuber, currently live on both Twitch and on YouTube. I've broken some pretty big stories, including, most notably, stories about Sasha Banks and stories about Becky Lynch. So Sasha Banks' return, Becky Lynch's return at SummerSlam, and after SummerSlam for Sasha Banks, both covered by myself. Sasha Banks' plans for WrestleMania covered by myself, and a number of other reports as well, including The Rock working with Becky Lynch in the inaugural SmackDown. That's gone quite a way back, but there's plenty more as we go there. Oh, the Discord link started playing audio. Interesting, Ed. Interesting. I'm going to quickly go through some of the questions that we've got before getting on to the news for that one. So firstly, on the Twitch side, we have Sean Cena, who says, hello Tom, how are you? Very well, thank you. Also says, your thoughts on Casey Catanzaro and Kaylee Ray's new names? Unnecessary, completely unnecessary. I don't understand it. Brandon says, hello Tom, stuck in bed with the flu today. Glad you finally have some company from yourself. Glad to finally have some company from yourself with tonight's spoiler warning. Hope you're doing very well. I am indeed. I'm very sorry to hear you're not doing well, Brandon. Hopefully you start to feel better soon. Wolf Gamer says, I'm here early, let's go. Oh, welcome to the show, mate. And Brandon says, on a slightly happier note, I also signed myself up for the pre-sale for the WWE pay-per-view in Wales for September, so hopefully I can get tickets. Fingers crossed for you, mate. I'm excited for you. If that actually happens, it'd be fantastic. Moxie with the usual acknowledge me as well. Ed has asked a question about Hollywood. What movie franchise would you cast Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks in? Now, when it comes to Sasha Banks, when it comes to movie franchise, I'd be going a little bit further afield than typical and than standard. I'd be looking at something like, thinking of what's big right now, the X-Men series. I think she'd make a badass Storm, for example. I think also going further afield, she'd make a really good and interesting Lara Croft. I think we could play that as a slightly different iteration of the character, but there's a number of different franchises which do work in her favour. She's landed very well with Star Wars. Long may that continue. As regards Alexa Bliss, I can see her going Disney. Imagine Alexa Bliss playing the lead role in Enchanted. Basically that. It'd be great. I think everyone would have a great time with that. Bailey says, Tom, if the WWE continues to delay on Alexa, should you just go all in on Hollywood now with the media interest around her marriage? The WWE, you say continuing to delay, there was never a plan to have her appear before WrestleMania. She was not the first choice to make the appearance that she did at the Elimination Chamber. That was just because they didn't have anyone else cleared when they expected them to be. I've been very vocal on that one for quite a while now. As regards the future, Alexa Bliss is returning very shortly, and we will be seeing her in action very shortly. As in capitalising on Hollywood, we're going to be talking about that very shortly. Dimitar says, you were one of the first who reported that Cody will be fighting Seth and that Ronda will be returning. To be fair, I believe I was the first on both of those. Thank you very much there. And Sean says, did you see the report from Fightful about Alexa that was released on Monday? Yeah. Was it a report? she's been open on her Twitter expressing frustration at the fact that she's not wrestling. And the report came in and said she's frustrated that she's not wrestling. Isn't that obvious? I never understood. Thank you, Moxie, saying you also reported Sonya's in-ring return, Ronda Rousey, the Demon King, returning 3 weeks before he did. I forgot about the Demon King. Completely forgot about that. Thank you very much for the reminder. Simon said, I would love Sasha to be the new Captain Marvel. Now Brie Larson has left the role. Other role Amber Heard is left behind in the Aquaman DC movie franchise. We will see as regards the whole left behind thing. I'm not going to prejudice the outcome of a trial that's ongoing, just to be clear on that one. But if that role did come up, I think she'd be very good in it. Dematar says, Alexa seems like she would fit well in sitcoms. I agree. I feel basically anything involving Disney Channel. I see Alexa Bliss basically taking up the exact role of Ariana Grande. But like slightly more grown up, let's be honest. Hello, Michael. How are you, sir? Moxie says, Tom, who do you see facing Bianca, Roman, Edge and Seth Rollins at SummerSlam? I'm saying SummerSlam Bianca versus Rhea, Roman versus Seth versus Cody, and Edge versus Brock Lesnar. Well, if there's one person who can face off at SummerSlam against Bianca, Roman, Edge and Seth Rollins, it's definitely going to be Becky, let's be honest. That'd be a hell of a fatal 5-way. Or a hell of a 4-on-1 handicap match. Wolf Gamer says, great reporting from Fightful. Sean says that report also said she was pitched to get involved in the Becky-Bianca match at Mania. News to me. News to me. Ed says Captain Marvel is a rumour and they already have 2 people set in that spot if they do have Brie leave. And King's Andy also says much the same. Brie Larson hasn't left. She has a second film coming and she will be in the next Avengers. I wanted to share a theory actually. Just quickly divert and then I'll get to the actual Hollywood stuff. As regards the plans for the next big Avengers series. I am confident what's going to happen next as a whole big storyline is Galactus, which is the Planet Eater. And I'm confident the only way that the Planet Eater can be defeated is with a suit of armour around the world. Or for the entirety of the planet to be one division. And that's all I'll say on that. Jermaine says, hi Tom, what did I miss? Not much as of yet. Simon says, I would personally love to see Becky Lynch in Amazon's Primes. Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings as a lady elf. I'm not sure that would really suit. We'll see. Jared says, when has Brie Larson left the Captain Marvel role? We have had it confirmed in the chat so far that actually did not happen. Nelson says, do you think Vince will sell WWE? I hope he doesn't. No, I think he will die in the chair. And I stand by that. Right. Let's get to some actual news then. So let's talk about Hollywood. Sasha Banks has been the most open about Hollywood ambitions of anyone in the WWE, particularly in a recent interview with Logan Paul. She was very, very open about the fact that she does have Hollywood ambitions and does not see herself wrestling for all that much longer. Hollywood, I can confirm, have reached out several times to not just Sasha Banks and her representatives, but the WWE in general. The WWE, as far as I can tell, are not inclined to let this happen while Sasha Banks is under contract with them. However, they are happy for her to take on certain film roles and certain TV roles as long as it directly benefits the WWE to do so. There are, to my knowledge, 2 major franchises interested in working with Sasha Banks. One of them is a continuation in Star Wars. She would basically, by sounds of it, from what I can tell, get herself a spin-off from Mandalorian and have her own series, as it were, that would be an ensemble cast. The second, I am not at liberty to discuss. I haven't been given much more information about it, just the fact that it is a major Hollywood franchise and one of the leading franchises. Being told quite similar in level to Hunger Games when Hunger Games was being produced, for example. As regards Becky Lynch, her first foray into films was Marine 6. This basically is what resulted in the Man character, and the Man character has drawn a lot of attention. Now, Big Time Bex is actually very close to what the Man character was originally supposed to be before she was forcibly turned face by the crowds and the audiences. So she's able to basically display herself as a villain a little more on TV. This has gained her a lot of interest. There was already offers for Becky Lynch, but her current work as Big Time Bex is drawing a lot of additional attention. A lot of additional attention from some big time movie makers. Once again, at the moment under WWE contract, and she has signed a new one recently, the WWE are not inclined to allow her to explore these roles. With Becky Lynch as well, she is more likely over the next year or so to be taking up film and TV roles, and the WWE have encouraged her to do so, but there is talks of potentially pausing her contract and using dedicated time off that she has in order to make those recordings. Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks, as well as a number of others, have made TV appearances in the past. Bianca Belair also has some limited interest at the moment of getting her more involved in the TV but not necessarily Hollywood circuits at the moment. As regards Alexa Bliss, there is a lot of interest in Alexa Bliss, quite possibly more than anyone else in the WWE, including Roman Reigns. Alexa Bliss is someone who's been getting Hollywood interest for years now. Pardon me. I'm talking 3, maybe 4 years for Alexa Bliss. For a long time, the expectation via WWE management was that Bliss would be the next one to walk away from wrestling straight into the Hollywood picture. To be clear, yes, there is a lot more interest for music videos, but more importantly, at least for her, there is interest from the horror elements. The character that Alexa Bliss has recently played has had some interest for franchises such as, but not limited to, the Scream franchise and the like for certain cameos. But also, yes, to be blunt, Disney Plus would like to work with Alexa Bliss in some capacity. The WWE are taking this opportunity to obviously explore some of these options, speak to people such as the executives at Disney, and see if a working arrangement between Disney and the WWE can come to pass. Particularly outside of the US, platforms like Disney and Amazon Prime have got a lot of interest in WWE pay-per-views or premium live events as they are now, and shows like that have a lot of interest in creating more than they are currently providing. The WWE at the moment does have a long-standing interest in essentially reducing the WWE network, scrapping it entirely, and using an alternative streaming service. Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, definite interest in WWE programming. The final person I want to discuss is Roman Reigns. There is considerable interest in Roman Reigns. However, it is not to the level of The Rock, and it is believed by WWE management that Roman Reigns himself is the one who is currently essentially preventing it from happening. There is apparently just a lack of interest at the moment from Roman Reigns' end about the Hollywood move. However, should he lose the championship, and I do believe he will lose it relatively soon, as in within this calendar year, I do believe the doors that have already opened will start to be essentially broken down in Roman Reigns' direction. So to be blunt, they're going to break the doors down and try and get themselves some Roman Reigns. If you're just tuning in, please do remember, if you're watching on YouTube, to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't. We have a record fairly recently of 50 or more viewers at once. We got to 50 pure on YouTube and up into the 70s on combined YouTube and Twitch, I believe it was. This is about a third of what Sam Roberts' live shows get based on my recent research in that. So I'm very, very proud of the amount of interest that we have in these shows at the moment. I am considering at the moment how to continue growing and how to continue developing what we're doing here. Every like, every comment, every question helps. Even if all you're doing is jumping in the chat and saying, I'm having a good time, that goes to the chat rate, that goes to the engagement rate. That means that YouTube will advertise this video to more people. In the build to the Royal Rumble, we were regularly getting 1.8 to 2,000 views per video, which is, or at least at the time, double my subscriber count. The reason was the incredible amount of engagement, the chat rate, and of course the likes as well. The engagement is what feeds YouTube, so if you haven't already, please do give it some love. John Cena says, we've seen Galactus before. He was in Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, which is not canon to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Dimitar says, Bex can do Marvel, but I'd love to see her and Sasha be in a movie or series as a villain duo or enemies. That could be a lot of fun. Could be a lot of fun. WWE Films, WWE Studios, is expected to return at some point soon to some minor degree. They're expected to essentially dip their toes in the water and see what they can make happen in the near future. Jaden says, hey Tom, did I miss something? You did not. I was at the time just getting into the news, and you were here for all of the news if you're still here now. Kings Andy says, Galactus is pretty much confirmed based on Loki Season 1. Can't go into much more detail than that. I have watched all of Loki Season 1, but I don't know what you're referring to per se. Brandon says, speaking of Marvel, 2 weeks until Doctor Strange 2. I'm excited for that. In case you guys don't know, big Wanda Maximoff fan. Big fan. Ed says she hasn't jarred yet. There are rumours they will phase her out for Kamala Khan and Monica Rambeau. Monica Rambeau, of course. Makes perfect sense. Sonic says, hello Tom. How are you doing this week? Doing very, very well, thank you. As annoying as it may have been that I missed shows on Sunday and on Monday, it's very refreshing for me. Very refreshing. And allows me to just take a breather, recoup a little bit, rest and regenerate if you will. Now, subscriber numbers have gone down a little bit. They have. Views have gone down because I'm not doing the shows as regularly because the likes aren't so high, etc. But at the same time, I was able to get a bit of a rest, and I can think about how best to do things going forwards. If it is better, for example, to just scrap pre-recorded content altogether and just be a live channel, etc., etc. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. Wolfgamer says, Vince will die in the chair, he will be mourned, and then the show will probably continue. Oh yeah, the WWE won't miss a single show. If he dies in the chair in the middle of a show, we won't know. We won't know until the PW Insider report comes out. You know? That's what will actually happen. Simon says, Team Bay, Sasha, Becky in the very same TV show movie. Would very much love it someday. Dimitar. I do like that every now and then you guys chat between yourselves a little bit. Now, I don't always read it out, so I appreciate it regardless of that fact, but it does guarantee a higher chat rate, so please do continue. Sean says, did everyone see the video that Becky said she wasn't going to walk out on Raw without a championship? Yes, she was essentially fulfilling previous obligations. She is still on a break as far as I'm aware, but she will be returning to face Bianca Belair at some point soon. Sonic says, Becky's man character is based off of her character with the Marine 6, which is random. It's not random. It's not random at all. The heel turn was based on promotion for that film. I've said this before, and I will happily say it again, because I think it definitely needs saying. The WWE turned Becky Lynch heel at SummerSlam, which began the man character, because they wanted her to mirror her character in the Marine 6 to help promote the franchise. Of course, this is also when she had conversations with Shawn Michaels about her overall development on the WWE side. He told her, go back and act like you already own the place. Sounds like the man to me. Michael says, if Sasha leaves, then I have no reason to watch WWE. I believe that Sasha Banks is the most likely to leave the WWE for Hollywood in the next 2 years or so. She's done everything in the WWE. I know she hasn't had particularly long championship reigns, but she's still done everything. Wolfgamer says, before I end up forgetting, I wanted to say that I started working yesterday. Fantastic news, Wolfgamer. Glad to hear it, mate. It really does make a big difference having some work behind you and just being able to know that you've got that steady income in. I've noticed this myself naturally from the new job and new work that I'm doing, that so much good stuff is happening in my life because I've got the ducks in a row, as it were, because everything else is panning out as I was hoping. Moxie says, have Alexa Bliss be Pennywise's child? I mean, that could be fun, honestly. I mean, I've seen it. I haven't seen the new version of it. I've seen the old version of it, as it were. And I do think modernising that and going like Bride of Chucky, as it were, could work for the franchise. Because after all, the creature in it isn't necessarily alone. It isn't necessarily a soul. I just realised my fingers look very black. I'm currently ripping up a piece of newspaper. And my fingers look very black. I do apologise. Got ink stains on them. But yeah, I do believe the franchise can be relaunched, at least in a bit more Hammer horror. There could be good stuff there. Bailey says a confluence of these Hollywood interests with WWE talent and WrestleMania being there next year should be very interesting. Some agents and studio execs will be getting some VIP treatment there. They will. The WWE will continue their charm offensive in order to convince as many wrestlers as possible that they're interested in to go across to Hollywood, record a film, reach that mainstream level, and then come back. If I can find an example. I was looking for something earlier and I don't know if I still got it open. I don't still have it open. Bear with me just a second, guys. This could be quite fun. But I just want to do something a little bit different now. Okay, so an example I wanted to pull, as it were. If I go across to, for example, Google Trends, and I'm looking at Google Trends for a reason. Now, this is a great way of checking certain things, as it were, and just confirming reports and the like. So if I go over to Google Trends, it's this one, isn't it? To Google Trends. And I start by typing in, let's say, Sasha Banks. American professional wrestler. So we start there. So we've got Sasha Banks. Interest over time, based on certain matches. This is everything around SummerSlam, for example. And let's put in what she's in. Mandalorian. Television series. Is she helping Mandalorian or is Mandalorian helping her? Well, that's pretty clear. Mandalorian's in the red. She's benefiting from Mandalorian because it's a higher one. Let's go a little bit differently. Let's go WWE. WWE in blue is obviously quite considerably higher than the Mandalorian, but not to a considerable level there. So Sasha Banks is down here somewhere. WWE is up here somewhere. When you go to Hollywood, when you go through that phase, you change certain things. And WWE gets the rub, as it were. And yeah, I just used Google Trends to explain it. But WWE gets the rub from Mandalorian, and Mandalorian gets the rub from WWE. This is one of the things about casuals. The WWE do aim for casuals. And that's why they want the wrestlers to be appearing in The Mandalorian, and so on. Ed says, did Roman do more harm than good in his appearance in Hobbs and Shaw movie with The Rock? Possibly, yes, particularly given the time away that he had. It wasn't a tremendous appearance. It wasn't absolutely setting the world on fire. It was fun. It was definitely fun. But I feel that he didn't exactly get a taste for it from what we can tell because he's not appeared in anything else. Dimitar says, basically they can't do big stuff while on contract, but they can do appearances like Sasha did for Mando or Becky did for Billions. That is absolutely correct. Essentially, if their appearance goes through the WWE, they're absolutely fine to jump in and do whatever the hell they want. If it doesn't go through the WWE, then we start to see issues. Because the WWE, while a wrestler is under contract, they have a right to your face. That's why you can't appear on Twitch. That's why you can't appear on Cameo and the like without WWE's express permission. You have to have WWE's express permission to appear in things such as The Mandalorian. Sean says, I've seen some reports, I believe, by Cage Side Seats that Roman is going to reign for another year. Did that report come from Cage Side Seats, or is that the report from WrestlingNews.co? Because WrestlingNews.co reports a lot of things. They do not have the best record on it because most people just forget about it. So was that report actually from Cage Side Seats, or were Cage Side Seats re-reporting it? Should we find out? Let's find out. Let's do ourselves a Google. Google. Okay. Roman Reigns cage side seats. And just see what the latest reports are. One day ago, WWE plans to feature Roman Reigns in the main event of WrestleMania Backlash. Rumour roundup, Roman Reigns title plans, that could be what you're referring to. Let's have a look, shall we? So we're going on to cage side seats. Just trying to find this report on Roman. Where is it? Roman Reigns title plans, April 16th. Let's have a look. Roman Reigns title plans, April 16th. Let's have a look. According to WrestlingNews.co, there are still no plans for Roman Reigns to lose the WWE Universal Championship anytime soon. If WWE decides to keep the title on him through WrestleMania 39 next year, the idea will be to promote him as the greatest of all time. So it is the WrestlingNews.co report, and to be blunt, you don't see a lot of stuff from WrestlingNews.co as exclusives, do you? You know. Jaden says, is there going to be a SmackDown watch party? Yes, there is. We will be watching SmackDown together tonight, if you'd like to rock up. Nelson says, who do you think takes over? I hope Triple H and Stephanie. Also, what do you think Balor does next? I hope he doesn't leave. I don't believe Triple H and Stephanie will be taking over. I think Stephanie probably will. I am confident the next person who is down to be in charge of the WWE is Nick Khan. Triple H has been very open about the fact that he only ever wanted to wrestle. He hasn't got that much interest in the boardroom, as it were. He's happy with NXT. He's made some changes there recently, which I won't be going into too much detail about. But it's one of those things where I don't think he actually wants the big chair, as it were, because WWE and NXT, very different beasts. Jermaine says, I still believe Sasha Banks was lightly negotiating when she did that interview with Logan Paul. And you may be absolutely correct. It's definitely worth mentioning that she may have been under negotiation, as it were, encouraging the WWE to offer her more money. If that's the case, all power to her. That is how you do it. But I do have to assume that that's not the case. Jermaine also says, as for Alexa Bliss, I had always believed she would leave WWE for movies and TV ASAP, and you're far from alone in that. Brandon says, could you honestly see Roman being a babyface again, considering how good a reaction he's got since turning heel? Also, do you think the bloodline will break up once he loses both titles? I think the bloodline is it now. I think it will stay together basically till the end of time, or at least for the next 5 years, at which point they'll start retiring and filtering down. I think the Usos will likely go before Roman, but I think Heyman will go before then and just go backstage, as it were. As regards Roman Reigns turning face, I think if he stops acting like a heel, if Paul Heyman walks away, the fans will automatically turn him face because we acknowledge our tribal chief. Simon says, thoughts on the big AEW Tony Khan announcement, AEW New Japan Forbidden Door Super Show in Chicago on June 26th, possible dream matches on the card. I think Tony Khan has way too many, massive announcements. I think this is a good thing, but I think he's already got expectations rocketing to a very high level. Now, AEW has been proven to deliver when they rocket those expectations up, but at the same time, sometimes you just got to not rock the boat, Sometimes you just got to not rock the boat. Dream matches for me involve Jay White and Jon Moxley, because, Daniel Bryan and Kazuchika Okada. Sorry, I need a minute. And Orange Cassidy versus Toru Yano. That's actually so good I'm going to tweet it. So good I'm going to tweet it. I just Forbidden Door dream match. Orange Cassidy versus Toru Yano. Book it. Because why the hell not? That's I love everything about that as a concept. Everything about that I love. Everything about it. Thank you, Wolf Gamer. Thank you, Sean. for quote tweeting my announcement tweet of this show. I'm going to give you some likes, and I'm going to give you some retweets as well. Now, where are we? Michael says, I'm not a fan of the big time Bex character at all. I think she needs to be a face. At the moment, the reason for her being heel is to push Bianca Belair. I understand why she's a heel, and it makes sense to me personally. King Xander says the Sasha spin-off will most likely be Night Owls with Bo-Katan and Axe Woves. I may have said too much. Simon says, really great point, Jermaine. I think she was still for a really great new contract, really high negotiation. The WWE definitely want to spend more money, as it were, on Sasha Banks, as long as they can keep her, because Sasha Banks is a law unto herself, essentially, with what she's able to bring. She is a proven draw, and one of the strongest ratings grabs that they have is anything involving Sasha Banks. Wolfgamer says, I have a question about Kushida. Since his contract expired, does he not have a no-compete clause? That is correct. Kushida does not have a no-compete clause because his contract did expire and he just ran it down. If you're currently watching on Twitch, please remember to hit the follow button. Meanwhile, if you're watching on YouTube, please remember to hit subscribe and, of course, hit like. We are currently on 15 likes and 35 viewers. Now, if we had 35 likes, I promise you we'd have 50 plus viewers. So if you're able to, please remember to hit that like button. It does almost immediately result in a significant boost to viewership. I can see, in fact, I can show you. And I'm going to. I can see a spike right here, which is where I first said, hey guys, do you want to click like for me? I can see the spike directly. And it does work out, so please do consider it. Hello, Key Rebel. Welcome to the show. JJ says, hey, Tom. So do you think Becky can be possibly filming something now or just on a break? I do believe she's on a break at the moment, but it is possible she may be filming something. To my knowledge, nothing has been confirmed or is particularly likely at this point in time. Brandon says, I think Alexa would be cool for the Saw franchise. Ooh, that could work in so many different ways. Ooh. Spider Boss says, hi Tom, any chance of the Usos becoming undisputed tag team champs at Backlash? Yes, a high chance of exactly that happening. I would say 85, 86% personally. I'd say it's very likely. Gotcha, Kings Andy, thank you for the clarification. Simon says, with WrestleMania 39 being in Hollywood next year, do you see Sasha being in a women's title match next year or against Trish in a dream match? I see more dream match territory personally, largely because, as I've said, my rough expectation is that the Four Horsewomen, I've been told this several times, will be phased out of the championship picture at least a little bit, and that's regards to top championships, not necessarily the tag championships. I have absolute confidence she will be featured. I have absolute confidence she'll be heavily featured. A match against Trish makes a lot of sense to me. Sonic says, earlier this week I saw Asuka posted a tweet saying, here, pretty sure she's telling WWE that she's here and ready to come back. Yeah. Exactly. Tim Mattel says, think she's on a break, even changed the advertised triple threat dark match for SmackDown. It's Rhea versus Bianca now. Sorry, guys. So yeah, a few changes along the way to basically help ensure that Becky Lynch has the time off as required by certain contractual terms has been very beneficial for everyone involved. Get to Tables, welcome. Says, is there a limit on what kind of movies WWE allows them to be in? An example of a movie like Superbad or some other kind of rated R comedy. Yes, there are dedicated limitations. The WWE has quite significant clauses in contracts about bringing the company into disrepute. Now, naturally, if there was any sort of legal challenge against that, it would be overturned immediately on the basis of the very questionable elements of certain WWE contracts. But Superbad's a really good example. Leading on that example, and for example, the film Knocked Up, they would definitely not allow any of their wrestlers to be in the film Knocked Up. As regards Superbad, I think they'd let the male superstars go into a film like Superbad. I can see The Miz going into a film like Superbad. They would not allow the women to go into a film like Superbad, primarily because when you look at the way that men and women are used differently in films like that, I think it's quite telling. R-rated comedies, definitely not. R-rated movies, as in horror, yes. There is definitely interest in that. Spider-Boss says, how much WWE get from Sasha's cameo on The Mandalorian? Firstly, I wouldn't call it a cameo per se. But to be clear, I don't believe the WWE got a single penny. I don't believe the WWE made anything in pure financial terms from Disney for the filming of Mandalorian and for the use of Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks herself will undoubtedly have been paid. What they will have got, essentially, is free advertising, and that is what the WWE were after. Spider-Boss says, I wonder who is going to be Roman's opponent for Backlash. Shinsuke Nakamura is definitely the most obvious choice there, and I expect we will see both Roman and Shinsuke tonight on SmackDown. Hector says, happy Friday, Tom. With Tony Khan's huge announcement not getting the views he was hoping for, how long will it be till Tony realises he needs to start catering more towards the casual fans in addition to the hardcore fans? Now, this has been a great debate for a while. AEW does not cater to casual fans, it caters to hardcore fans, and that's been the case for a very long time. A very, very long time. So, when it comes to the intentions here, AEW have managed to get what I think at least is very, very good viewership from a minor hardcore fan base. The casuals are not who they appeal to. We've spoken about the retention rate before. It is the single biggest problem, in my opinion, that AEW has. It cannot retain viewers because it doesn't give people enough information about the ongoing storylines. It just gives you a piece of the information. When it comes to the announcement not getting the views he was hoping for, he'll have to actually come up with a different way of advertising because this was always going to get diminishing returns. We still have not had an honest rating for Dynamite or for SmackDown or for Rampage. And by honest rating, I mean something that isn't artificially inflated by an announcement, a debut, or the like. AEW has not yet had a single week where it has operated as business as usual. That is when we will start to find out how viable long-term this company actually is. But in a way, what they're doing now to push growth is also very much working. Jared says, any Roman Reigns tonight? Yes, I expect that Roman Reigns will be featuring tonight on SmackDown to build to whatever the plan is for WrestleMania Backlash. Sean says, a Reddit user posted a picture of Io Shirai in a walking boot and using crutches. Apparently she's injured in the Fatal 4-Way. WrestlingNews.co, I believe, reported this, and WWE and Io haven't confirmed she is injured. Now, at the time of watching, I did note that Io Shirai, when she did the moonsault, did hit her legs on the table, the announce table. However, she did continue with the match. As regards the picture was posted on Reddit. WrestlingNews.co did not report it. It was simply a lot of speculation around it based on that picture. I do believe it's precautionary. She is injured. She'll be off screen for a little while and then return shortly. It's not believed to be significant or require any surgery. Spider-Boss says, what is next for Sasha and Naomi? Natalya and Shayna Baszler. Drode David Ian says, what about Roman Reigns? He is also teased for Hollywood. He is not teased for Hollywood. Hollywood have reached out in the attempt to get some Roman Reigns in their lives. And from what I can tell, there is little interest in that happening, at least while Roman Reigns is currently the champion. The interest seems to be definitely in WWE's side, but not Roman Reigns' side. So we'll see what happens in the near future, depending on when he loses the championship. Simon says, Becky is only doing house shows for a while, it seems, as they're going with a Bianca versus Rhea feud. Perhaps for a while for the Raw Women's title championship, until Becky eventually comes back for a rematch. That is essentially what they're doing right now. Yes, Becky had some obligations in place before she booked her break, and she is fulfilling them as expected. Bailey says, perhaps one of the reasons Triple H wants no part of the big chair is by seeing how much work it is. You'll never see another Vince McMahon who is a full-time corporate CEO and a full-time booker, director at the same time, was also once the lead announcer at the same time. Yeah, and like front of house talent, as it were. The guy never stops working, and yeah, I don't believe we'll ever see another Vince McMahon unless you look at Tony Khan. Sean says, do you believe there's interest from WWE to bring back the Revival? Yes, there is absolutely interest from the WWE in bringing back the Revival. for much less money than they were offering them previously. The WWE never wanted to let the Revival go. I was the one who reported that the numbers had gotten as high as 900,000 to $1 million per year for the Revival that was being offered. I was also the one who reported initially that the WWE had confidence that the Revival would sign new deals when the latest deal was offered. Of course, what actually happened there is that maybe someone saw that report and decided that they didn't want that contract after all. Brandon says, who do you think will be next to go from WWE to AEW and vice versa? I've spoken about Chris Jericho and MJF before. They're people that I can see moving. As regards the other direction, I think it'll be people slightly lower down the card. Maybe someone like Apollo Crews. Simon says, my dream match is Punk versus Kenta. Battle of the GTS. Kenta already teased on his Twitter Insta yesterday. I don't believe there's much interest in that from CM Punk, though. That would be a fun match. Moxie says, my favourite Roman Reigns match was Jay versus Roman inside Hell in a Cell. So compelling and well done. The storyline was just so amazing. Demental says, do we know anything solid about contract status of Becky or Sasha? Last I was aware of, Becky Lynch had a fairly recent new contract, whereas Sasha Banks has roughly 2 years on her current one. We'll see how it goes. Spider-Boss says, I laughed a lot with Sasha being involved in the wedding segment of Raw. Sasha and Naomi were basically there to react to things, which was a lot of fun and just really enjoyable to watch as a viewer. Spider-Boss says, is Becky coming back for a rematch against Bianca at Backlash? No. Simon says, thoughts on Tay Conti and Sammy Guevara's AEW heel turn early this week on Dynamite on Wednesday. People already hated them because they're in love with each other, so it was the right thing to do. I think it's just the right way to take advantage of the fact that people already hate these characters for basically nothing. So, Brandon says, will AJ Styles win the world title at least once more before he retires? I don't believe he will. Certainly not on WWE Raw, where he's just never been treated like a big deal. King Zandy says, Sasha versus Meiko Satomura at the UK show. I'd actually rather have it at Mania than the Trish match. That match is not planned at the moment. The UK show will feature WWE main roster talent versus WWE main roster talent. WWE UK talent are not believed to be likely to play a part in that show at all, though they may be part of some dark matches and pre-show matches. King Xander says, as regards Mandalorian, WWE got nothing. Sasha used her real name in Mando. She's been using her real name for a lot outside of WWE projects. Smart woman. The fact is that she was able to use her real name because WWE permitted it. I've got to be clear on that one. The WWE permitted her to appear on The Mandalorian. It's not like she's tricked them in any way, shape or form. The WWE agreed to the whole thing. Spider-Boss says, how long will the Rhea versus Liv Morgan feud last? Not long. I imagine it will last 1, maybe 2 months. Though at the same time, this is exactly what happened with Rhea Ripley and Nikki Cross. Just the other way around as regards dynamic. Brandon says, speaking of AEW, it's so good to see Samoa Joe over there. Do you think CM Punk is going to beat Hangman for the world title? No, I believe MJF is going to beat Hangman for the world title. Simon says that WWE only acknowledged Sasha's Mandalorian Season 2 appearance last October, although they did acknowledge it on the bump. Yet that doesn't actually mean all that much. The WWE were trying to get the benefit from the Mandalorian, not give the benefit to the Mandalorian. Sasha Banks was the benefit that they gave to the Mandalorian. Hello Marcus, how you doing, mate? Rob says there's pics online of fellow Aussies and sometimes workout partners, Murphy and Ripley, enjoying Universal in Florida yesterday afternoon. Cool. I hope they had fun. Freaks of Wrestling says, will Io Shirai be called up soon? Not yet. This is a really baffling one, like a genuinely baffling one, because she's been in a perfect position to be called up time and time again, and yet somehow it just doesn't seem to be happening. It's very confusing. Brandon says, did you see Drew McIntyre's interview with Sky Sports? Said that if Tyson Fury wins tomorrow night, it should give the WWE a call to try and set something in motion for the UK pay-per-view. Yeah. Drew McIntyre has been name-dropping Tyson Fury a lot recently because he wants to make that match happen. That's what Drew McIntyre does. He knows how to use the media. Spider-Boss says, who do you think will jump from AEW to WWE? Have already mentioned that I think Chris Jericho and MJF are likely players. David says, Tom Colohue, Paige is an active current WWE roster. Is she? Because she's not cleared to wrestle. Like, she's not cleared to wrestle, so I don't know if she actually is a member of the active roster. She may appear under the active roster on the WWE.com website, but can I ask you when she moved off it? Someone says, apparently Sasha's tryout in Boston was against AJ Lee, and her and Natty apparently had a 45-minute Iron Woman match once a few years ago in Natty TJ's Davey Boy Smith Jr.'s New Heart Dungeon in Orlando. Yep. Both of those things are true. Natalya has been a key trainer of all of your favourites. All of everyone's favourites. More respect should be put on Natalya's name. Sean says, Nikki Bella was asked about a return to wrestling. She said she will keep coming back as long as doctors clear her, and said she wants to win the tag belts with Brie. She does. Both of them are very interested in making that happen, but they do have to nurse her neck a little bit. Moxie says, I think Becky versus Bianca at Money in the Bank. I definitely think it's a later in the year sort of thing, rather than a upcoming this month. Though it's not impossible, after all, Bianca versus Sonya Deville has been moved to Raw. Marcus says, personally, I don't think FTR will go back because this run is legendary. They may be enjoying this run. They may also decide to go back. Stranger things have happened. It depends whether or not AEW renews their contracts. Because if AEW does not renew their contracts, then they'll definitely be fielding off a lot of offers from WWE. Simon says, do you see AJ versus Roman happening anytime soon in the very near future? The very near future, yo. Wiggly, you caught me out there. The very near future, no. But I do see the match happening again, and I'd be very excited for it. Hello, Wiggly. How you doing, mate? Spider-Boss says Sasha versus Charlotte is featured for live events in Leipzig, Germany. Yep. Because Ronda is not travelling, to my knowledge. Wiggly says, what did you make of AEW's big New Japan announcement? I'm excited because I'm a big New Japan fan. Thank you, Nelson, for reminding me. I did miss what you said earlier on, saying, what do you think Balor does next? Nothing. I think Balor does nothing next. Just going to come out with that and be very, very honest. I think Finn Balor does absolutely nothing next. I think he's been booked to do absolutely nothing next. We currently have 42 viewers and we are sitting at 19 likes. Now, every like does increase the chance of more viewership live. It also increases the chance of more viewership later. So please do remember to hit like while watching this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Sean says, could Drew McIntyre beat Roman Reigns at the WWE UK pay-per-view in September? Yes, he could. It is a possibility, because September is a long way away, and we don't know what's definitively planned. Wiggly says, also they revealed the name of the AEW game. I saw that, I cannot remember what the name was, but it sounds okay. If you've been watching here regularly, you probably have already seen at least something of the AEW financial analysis that I did with Gleb, our very own Dr. Brillman. And what I've got to say as regards to the AEW game is that this game needs to be a massive success. A massive success. Now, it should be. It absolutely should be. I definitely think Kenny Omega is going to try and get Xavier Woods playing on Up, Up, Down, Down. It won't happen, but I definitely think he's going to try. It should be a massive success. They've just got to make sure it is. Edward Brooks says, seems like we never hear any news in regards to Bayley's contract and how long she's signed. I've always been curious. That's because Bayley does not talk to the wrestling journalists. Typically, if you're hearing a whole lot of news about contracts for someone, it means that they've spoken directly to wrestling journalists about it. Bayley's contract, to my knowledge at the moment, is frozen because of her injury. King Xander says, that's disappointing. How can you have Sasha and Meiko under contract and not put them in a match? The main reason is because the WWE doesn't really want to promote and build Meiko Satomura. They would rather promote and build people such as Liv Morgan at the moment, because they believe that Meiko Satomura is working mostly in a coaching capacity at the moment, though she is still wrestling, and doesn't have that many years ahead of her. Pardon me. KJ says, what's up, Tom? Welcome, KJ. Says Io was seen on Easter weekend with boot and crutches, and also says Paige was always on the active roster page. I do believe she was indeed. King Zandy says, any Sasha Naomi plans tonight? Yes, I do believe we will see the beginning of these Sasha Banks and Naomi versus Natalya and Shayna Baszler feud. Though of course there was also a tease of Raquel Rodriguez getting involved in that, so maybe a 6-woman tag, but then who's going to team? There's a lot of moving parts at the moment is what I'm trying to say. Brandon says, is it true Bret Hart has signed with the WWE? I've just seen the Sportskeeda are doing a live stream covering it. I don't know. Let's see what the... I've already done this once. Let's see what the source is on this one. Bret Hart, WWE signed. What's the latest on this? I see a What Culture article. I see a Ringside News article. AEW believes Bret Hart has signed a new deal with WWE. Right. Okay. Let's see who the actual source was. I'm betting it was, yep, Dave Meltzer. So to be clear, what you're asking me is, did Bret Hart sign with the WWE? Let's actually look at how this is being reported. Dave Meltzer reports that AEW think that Bret Hart signed a WWE deal. So that is the first-hand sources would be WWE or Bret Hart. So it's the opinion of AEW. Who in AEW? Who? So it's second-hand there. Then it's Dave Meltzer reporting it. So it's Dave Meltzer's interpretation of people in AEW who he hasn't named telling him that they think Bret Hart has signed with the WWE. Then it comes to us as fans, so it's a fourth-hand source. A fourth-hand source. Now, don't get me wrong, this may genuinely be true. However, the WWE are very unlikely to be spending money on someone who's not going to be on their TV screens. Nick Khan would not allow it, so I'm going to be honest. I don't think this one's true. I don't think this one's true at all. Wiggly, wow, this is a long question. It says, also weird question. I was watching a wrestling news thing on YouTube and they mentioned how Pat McAfee referred to Pete Dunne as a rabid Wolverine and people are speculating WWE is starting to acknowledge name redacted again. But surely that's absolutely ridiculous. Just a silly mistake. Why are people conflating that? Do you think there are people in the wrestling fandom who just can't accept the fact name redacted will never be celebrated or mentioned, etc.? Yes, all of that is absolutely correct. It was just a random saying by Pat McAfee. It was not something that the WWE were particularly happy about. The WWE backstage, Vince in particular, was not happy that that happened and spoke to McAfee afterwards. And yes, there were a lot of people who were determined to get the name of name redacted in everyone's mouths at all times. I don't know why. Sean says, do we think Bianca versus Sonya happens on Raw or does it get moved to Backlash? It is currently planned to appear on Raw. Spider-Boss says, any plans for Ricochet? He will continue to defend the Intercontinental Championship. They are struggling for opponents, so it's unlikely he's going to be on week in and week out. Wiggly says Ronda isn't coming to London no more. She's not going to be featuring in any matches from what I can tell, but I don't believe she's going to be featuring in Leipzig, Germany. Much like Roman Reigns, Ronda Rousey will only be making select appearances for TV tapings. Joe says, Tom, Roman Reigns will miss WrestleMania Backlash. What's your source on that, David? What's your source on that one? Wiggly says, also, do you have any idea if they're doing any signings or appearances next week? I imagine they will, but I'm not sure when and how. Spider-Boss says, why has Ronda hasn't been on SmackDown lately? Because she's a parent, a very recent parent, and she's parenting. The WWE absolutely fine with it. She's not running away, she's not hiding or anything that has been mentioned or reported by unfavourable sources. None of that is a thing. None of that is a thing. Moxie says, I think Finn Balor is going to go to AEW. It's certainly possible. He hasn't had the rub of the green recently, but he does have quite a while left of his contract. Jane says, I'm playing 2K22. Apparently the new patch was very good. AEW Fight Forever. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Wiggly, as well. So they should have just named it AEW Dynamite. That would have been fun. Would have been fun. Spider-Boss says, why the Ronda versus Charlotte rematch still doesn't get excitement from fans? Depends what you mean by fans. Fans in arenas, really excited about it. Really excited. Fans online, not so much. Justin says, obviously it's still a long way off. In your opinion, do you see Sasha and Alexa re-signing? I don't unless they get a big pay raise. Hard to say. They both really enjoy wrestling, but the call of Hollywood is a very powerful one. Sonic says, more like Kenny Omega wants Xavier was to play the AEW video game on G4 TV, especially on Twitch. Nope, I said up, down, down. I meant it. Key Rebel says, hey, I'm good, thanks. I love your content. Thank you, Key Rebel. I appreciate that. Thank you kindly. I do try my best to just create entertaining, informative content and a very well-informed chat, and hopefully I'm achieving that, so thank you. I appreciate that. Sean says, who do you think beats Sasha and Naomi for their titles? Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, honestly. Spider Boss says, does Ronda have a part-time schedule? Yes, she always has and always will. Moxie says, Tom, do you ever see Shayna winning a SmackDown or Raw women's title in her career? I think she'll win at least one. Yes, I do. I absolutely do. And Brandon says, oh, that's a rip. Sorry, Tom, I didn't look into it. Livestream title has popped up on my phone notification, so I thought I'd ask. You are more than welcome to ask. That's the thing. I'm happy to check because I've got the PC and it's working very well. I can do multiple things at once. I can have a quick check and see what the source is, and that gives me a chance to not only comment on it but explain it. I have no issue with anyone bringing me stuff like that, but I will be fact checking and sourcing and so on and so forth. It's fun. Wiggly says, when is Asuka coming back? When they have 1, a storyline, and 2, she's cleared to do so. David, answer what? What are you asking? Simon says, name redacted, son David redacted, said in his interview with Chris Van Vliet that he is going to become a pro wrestler. Fair enough. To be clear, David Benoit is completely independent of the legacy that came before. And if he wants to become a pro wrestler, by all means he should be able to do so. David, Sportskeeda and What Culture do not actually source their own information. Not at least since I left Sportskeeda have they reported anything exclusive beyond something about WWE India. So I wouldn't say they're the sources. You have to dig a little bit deeper on that one. Sean says, an advertising during a USFL game for Raw and SmackDown appeared. Roman was on the SmackDown advertisement. Cody was on the Raw advertisement. Yeah. They are the big names of each brand. I've been very clear on that. I've mentioned several times. There was a report recently from PW Insider that Bobby Lashley was the #1 face on Raw. He's not. Cody Rhodes is. Cody Rhodes is the #1 guy, the #1 guy on Raw. There is a definite collision course between Cody and Roman. That's how it's going. Devin says, did I miss the Sasha move? No. Wiggly, I believe you've asked me this a few times. I'm not going anywhere this weekend apart from out for a few drinks with my family. Brandon says, is the Omos versus Lashley continuation feud just something to keep Lashley involved with things whilst they set up something else for him going forward? Yes. Lashley versus Roman is planned for the near future, but it's believed that he can give a good benefit to Omos, and also they can solidify the face turn with that feud. Spider-Boss says, when we could possibly see Bayley back? As soon as she's cleared to wrestle, so soon. Sean says, thoughts about the report from Dave Meltzer saying Sarah has no future in NXT, would be more successful if she left WWE. That's not really a report, is it? That's an opinion piece. That's an opinion piece. Ed, by name redacted, do you mean name redacted or do you mean different first name redacted? I just want to be clear on that. Simon says, do you see Liv winning a main roster singles women's Raw championship this year or anytime soon? Yes. Not necessarily Raw, but yes. Devin just says, news. Yes. Brandon says, who do you think will be the first guy to hand Cody his first loss since returning? Seth or someone else? Roman. I think Roman will be the first one to beat Cody Rhodes. Wiggly says, just to add, name redacted will never be celebrated. Anyone wanting this, just go read. Blah, blah. Yep. That's not something I want to continue reading out, to be fair, Wiggly. I'm going to move on because there's only so many times I can say name redacted. Got you, Ed. Thank you for clarifying that. Then, no, he's not completely independent. You are right to point that out. Simon says, do you see Sasha and Naomi joining the Bloodline anytime in the near future? I get asked this every single stream, probably from yourself every single stream, and maybe is still the answer. Tommy says, I think if Big E can't wrestle anymore, they should have him be an announcer on Raw, SmackDown or NXT. He can definitely wrestle in the near future. To be clear, he can wrestle in the near future. But that's just how it's going to go, you know? That's how it's going to go. Once he returns, he'll be back to wrestling. I think his character on commentary for a whole night, not for me. Spider-Boss says, any plans for Mandy's title reign? Plans have recently changed for Mandy's title reign. They're still being formed up. David says, what happened between you and Sportskeeda Wrestling? I left. I had some issues with the people there. The people there apparently had some issues with me. And there was, and you'll find this if you go onto the Sportskeeda YouTube, there was a time when I had the podcast, the Sportskeeda podcast. That was shut down, despite accounting for a large part of the growth of their YouTube at the time, and a number of other things which I wasn't a fan of. So I wanted to walk away. Didn't feel I had the backing I was looking for, and I no longer wanted to work there. So I have nothing but good things to say about Sportskeeda. I enjoyed working for them. I enjoyed working with them. But there are certain individuals there and certain individuals that advise there that I'm not keen on working with. So I decided to leave. Justin says, Alexa, Sasha and Becky going to Hollywood would be great, but WWE are so hard to deal with in the name department. WWE should let them use their WWE name instead of their real name. I think they would rather use their real name, and by they, I mean the wrestlers themselves. Spider-Boss says, I would love to see Liv Morgan back on SmackDown. Those days will come. Wiggly says, do you think Everton will get relegated? I do not. Sean says, Sliced Wrestling put out a report about Jeff Hardy. Don't believe it, it's Sliced Wrestling. Yeah, because Sliced Wrestling intentionally report wrong news. They don't hide that, and that's fine. They do it for comedy. It's a parody of Slice Wrestling, who used to just make shit up. Just religiously. Tommy says, when will the next AEW star jump ship to WWE? I have absolutely no idea. Simon says, your quick thought on the title race between our two teams. City very possibly soon signing Haaland. Very quickly then, I don't know if Guardiola knows what to do with someone like Haaland, because he doesn't really know what to do with strikers more often than not. As regards the title race, should be Cities to lose. I think they'll be okay. Spider-Boss says, did Queen Zelina turn babyface after breaking it with Carmella? Don't know, actually haven't caught up on that one yet. Wiggly says, will CM Punk ever return to WWE? No. Wiggly, I did not debate what you said. Didn't debate that. Didn't say anything about that. And we are out of questions and comments. We will be live later today for a SmackDown watch party. If you've not yet done so, please remember to hit like on the YouTube video. That will guarantee us hundreds of additional views later on this video. So please, if you're able to, remember to click like. And until later on, until SmackDown, I've been Tom Collohue. Thank you everyone for your time and for your questions. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all very, very soon.